You also don't require resources besides health and ammunition and malaria pills, meaning you can run around in the parched desert all day without needing a drink. The things that are unnoticeable or irrelevant in other games become of central consideration in Far Cry 2, because they are elements of a natural environment, or of a character reacting to a natural environment, and Far Cry 2's only real strength is its environment. So things like needing food and water, and the subsequently necessary inventory and weight limits, and having NPCs you can interact with, and who go about their daily business, characters who aren't automatically hostile to you, and animals that live in the environment. Lots of animals, and not just the gay ones. These things would make the environments actually interesting. And by having animals, you can make a whole gameplay element around them. You can hunt them for food, or to sell for money, which, with a little thought, could be made into something useful. And of course, with halfway decent AI, they'd be hunting you too. And by having non-hostile NPCs, and as an extension of this, factions, you can present opportunities for the player to make decisions that affect their position in the world, opening up and blocking off quests. And with an inventory, you could carry as many weapons as your weight limit would permit, rather than the 4-slot limit you're restricted to, which would be acceptable, except that the weapon categories are absurd and obtuse. You have your blade, a pistol slot, a main weapon slot, and a heavy weapon slot. So you can carry a pistol, sniper rifle, and flamethrower. But to pick up a shotgun, you can't drop your flamethrower. You have to drop your sniper rifle. It's stupid and frustrating. All of these ideas I just listed as obvious improvements to the game, incidentally, are straight out of MMORPGs. The basic MMORPG gameplay of running to and fro, killing stuff, isn't all that great, but by having rewards in the form of character development and an immersive, worldly feel to the environment, the genre has become one of the most popular in computer game history. It boggles the mind that Ubisoft made a game that specifically takes the worst parts of an MMORPG and deliberately leaves out all the good parts. It wouldn't even matter if the game actually had good gunplay, but it really doesn't. With an open world African setting, which includes a night and day cycle, they've already got most of what they need sorted. But the game has abysmal AI. Like I said earlier, barring a few exceptions, every NPC in the game is automatically an enemy, and at no point is this more annoying than a few seconds before a fight starts, because they all have telescopic fucking vision. I'm certain your character is wearing a neon pink sandwich board with iridescent green writing that says "please fucking shoot me," because as soon as you get anywhere near them, that's exactly what they do. In fact, as soon as they see your vehicle, they open fire. They couldn't possibly identify the person in the car at that range, but they fire anyway. Maybe you're their boss, come to give them a pay rise for being so diligent, but they don't care. They just want to shoot everything they see. Of course, they somehow have a way of identifying the other characters in the game as not being enemies, but whatever. This is the AI's greatest offence, as being in an open world game set in Africa with a night and day cycle tends to bring out the natural hunter in you. You're going to want to crawl around through the grass and snipe enemies at range and then vanish into the shadows. But the AI won't let you. It's a concept that Crysis handled masterfully, albeit cheaply, with the nanosuit cloak mode. But Far Cry 2 players have no such luck. Enemies spot you a billion miles away, although attacking at night does reduce their field of vision a little bit. They can clearly see you through long grass, and they are particularly accurate. They're also very inconsistent when it comes to taking cover. Some enemies will run from cover to cover, others will stand out in the open like complete idiots, and when you just miss an enemy with a sniper shot, it seems their response is to stand still, giving you ample time to pop off a second round and score an easy kill. No points for guessing which type of controller led to that brilliant decision. The enemies are far more adequate at close range, if only by virtue of the fact that them being able to see you is believable, but they're still very odd. They have a tendency to lock onto your last known position, meaning if you can keep out of their field of vision, you can circle around and end up standing almost right in front of them and they still won't spot you, because they're obsessed with this position they've locked onto. Conversely, they also have a tendency to shoot at you, and quite impressively to hit you, while not even pointing in your direction. It's never quite up to the so bad it's hilarious standard of Oblivion, but it's hard to not chuckle at the stuff you'll see in the game. Actually, it's not all bad. The AI is pretty cool when it comes to injuries. They'll sometimes grip their wounds when hit, and you'll knock them down with certain shots, but you may not kill them, and after a while they'll drag themselves off or pull themselves to their feet. They'll also play dead and sit up and shoot at you when you move near them, which I absolutely love. I quickly got into the habit of confirming kills at long range. Most will use rifles or shotguns, but a few will camp out with sniper rifles or rocket launchers, which adds a nice layer of diversity to certain fights, but the snipers have a tendency to stand out in the open, often in high areas, presenting clear silhouettes, making them especially noticeable. The most interesting enemies in the game are probably the mortar guys. These fellas can blow you up while also remaining quite inconspicuous, and finding them and putting a bullet through them is particularly satisfying. But probably the best part of the combat is the propagating fire I mentioned earlier. Just about everything burns a little bit, and the wind will blow fire around, meaning it can spread, and it does spread. Throw a molly into some dry grass and you can expect the whole area to burn, and it will spread to bushes, trees and people. There are inevitably explosions in firefights, whether it's grenades, mollies, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, exploding cars, exploding fuel tanks, or good old red barrels. Stuff blows up and stuff burns, and it turns a fairly humdrum firefight into a dynamic and unpredictable experience as stuff sets alight and burns. It's both exciting and novel to have to displace not because enemies have made you, but because your cover is about to be engulfed by flame. Everything grows back just as it was, so you'll never permanently affect the environment, which is good, but it happens a little faster than I'd like. Another pretty cool thing about the firefights is that your buddies can save you. The buddy thing is generally a non-starter that adds virtually nothing of worth to the game, but also isn't intrusive, which is why I've barely mentioned it. But I do like being saved by my buddies. You have to visit a safe house to activate your buddy, but once they've been activated, they'll come and save your life when you die, and then help you out with your firefight. It's a little weird that it's your second best buddy who comes to rescue you, as it's your best buddy you're doing all the missions for, but the cutscene you have to watch each time feels like adequate punishment for failure, particularly considering that you have to go out of your way to activate the buddy at the safe house, and in general I like any death system that manages to avoid a loading screen while also punishing you somehow. There's a problem with just how formulaic the game is in general, but nowhere is it any worse than at the guard outposts. There are something like 50 of them in the game, and it's where you'll do most of your fighting. There are 5 or 6 enemies at each outpost, and they respawn after a while. As you pass outposts every minute or two, you have to constantly get out of your car and fight them, and apart from the interesting diversity fire adds, it's always the same fight, that is, not a very good one, over and over again. Or you can just drive right past them, but they have a tendency to hop into their own cars and chase after you, and about half of the time you'll be able to outrun them. But the other half, they'll shoot up your car enough that you have to stop and kill them and repair the car. It's impressive that the AI will chase after you, but it says a lot about the game and its combat, that you'll do your best to skip it. And then, what does that say about the developers that their AI's crowning feature is a response to players trying to avoid fighting it? Frustrating though the gameplay is, the visuals are excellent. The engine is generally really good. The fire looks great, and the shadows are really deep and dark, much darker than in most other games. It's a disappointment then that the nighttime isn't nearly as dark as it could be, particularly when they could have added night vision goggles, torches and batteries, yet more consumable resources, enhancing the immersion and upping the complexity. The animations are also really impressive, and there are some cool effects like plants that flatten as you walk over them. But just about everything in Far Cry 2 has already been done and done better in Crysis, so Far Cry 2 won't be blowing your mind. The music is really good, adding atmosphere to the fights, but at the suggestion of a friend I turned off the music. It's here that the sound really shines. The ambient jungle sound effects are really fantastic, from the sounds of the wind blowing the grass to the chittering of monkeys. The sounds are all great and do a very good job of putting you in the environment. Far Cry 2 is, as others have said, Assassin's Creed with guns. Its gameplay is stale and rote, its AI is laughably bad, and its story is bad enough to bore a coma patient. Its greatest strength, again like Assassin's Creed, is the world, but it's a deeply shallow world. A world that relies on gameplay to make it worthwhile, and Far Cry 2 just doesn't have it. If it was more like the MMORPG it emulates, it would be a much better game, and likewise, if it had more impressive combat, it would be a much better game. If it had had both, it would have been something truly special. But it has neither.